Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me for our Fridays at 9. This is just a quick 30-minute kind of a coaching call for agents that are interested in it. I have a cool offer for anybody that's watching today that I'll make at the end of the program. But I want to remind you that if you're watching live, you can type in questions into the dashboard. We're going to be watching for it. So if you have something that you're working on or struggling with, need help with, feel free to put it into the dashboard so that we can chat about whatever issue that you're having in your own business or life. So each week I try to focus on a couple of different areas that I think would be helpful for anybody that's in real estate. And oftentimes the stuff that I talk about is coming from a book that I read. So what many people may or may not know about me is that I time block 1 hour a day for reading. And so that means 1 hour a day I am like enthralled in a book. I've been reading this book lately. In fact, the way I work is I typically read 4 or 5 books at the same time and I switch back and forth. So I'll read an hour today on this one, and then tomorrow I might switch over to one of the other books. But this one is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. But there's some awesome stuff in here that I think would be helpful for any real estate agent. The one piece that resonated with me because it applies to any business, any salesperson, and basically all of you guys, you are CEOs of your own business. Just like I'm the CEO of my business, you're the CEO of your business. So you guys are leaders. But there's a whole chapter in Brene's book about how clarity is kindness. So what that means is that we live in a world where people are not clear about what they want or how they feel. And when we do that to people, when we are not clear, we are being unkind to them. I'm going to give you a couple different ways that I relate this in my business and how I relate it to real estate business. So one of the ways I relate it to my own business is when recruiting a real estate agent, I go out of my way to make sure that the real estate agent that we're bringing on understands every nook and cranny of their compensation, like their split. I've been told that that's unusual. So from other companies, sometimes what I hear is that somebody gets recruited and the recruiter gives them a rough idea. They'll be like, oh, whatever, you're on a 70-30 split. But when they actually get their first paycheck, they then realize that there's like a franchise fee off the top, then the 70%, then there's like a service fee on top of that, not to mention there's monthly expenses, things like that. So in other words, the recruiter is like being vague in order to get the person to join, because by the time they're in the company, nobody's going to leave at that point over a misunderstanding of the compensation plan. So that is somebody that is just not being 100% clear, and it's unkind to do to someone. I will say I see this in teams too. I think it's important that for anybody building a team, that team leaders get super specific about what their offering is and super specific about what happens if the whole thing doesn't work out, that the team doesn't work out and the person wants off the team several months later. Because oftentimes what we see is that somebody wants off the team and then there's like discrepancy, like whose customer was it? Was the customer a customer of the team, or was it a customer of the real estate agent? And these are all things that you can look at and just like create a simple contract, something like written out that is as super clear as possible. So back to when I recruit people. So when I sit with somebody, I talk about what our compensation plan is. And then I say, to be clear, this is exactly how it would work. To be clear, this is how we would calculate if you received a $10,000 commission. To be clear, this is exactly what you would end up getting. Then I send them a follow-up email after we sit down. I then explain again in super fine detail about every, like, how to calculate the commission. Now, definitely for most people, they're like, yeah, I'm fine. You don't have to tell me 30 times how the commission plan is broken down. I then explain in detail in that initial email I send out, these are all the things that you'll get for free at our company. And then I have like a list of things that you might have to pay for out of pocket. So I say, these are all the things that if these occur, you're going to have to pay these out of pocket. And there's a huge list of which 99% of people never have those fees. So like, for example, I say you're going to have to pay for your board and MLS fees, but if you do a mailing, you're going to have to pay for postage. If you do professional printing, you're going to have to pay for the professional printer. If you're going to hire a transaction coordinator, then you're going to pay for the transaction coordinator. So the point is, people say to me, like, that's like half this stuff I would never worry about. And I look at it that clarity is kindness. Like, to be so extra clear with people so that there is no miscommunication. I'll also say that in thinking about this theme of clarity, because it applies to the way we deal with customers too, like buyers and sellers. And I think the more clear that we can be with our buyers and sellers, so setting expectations right from the very start of the relationship can go a long way as well. In the past week, I got involved in a real estate transaction because a seller was not happy with the level of service of one of our agents. And that agent is a phenomenal agent who's been in the business, never a complaint in the many years that I've worked with this agent. So I'm like, that's really odd that this person doesn't like working with this agent. So I said, I'll step in, I'll do the transaction, and our agent will still be the agent who gets the deal in the end. So I stepped in, and it became abundantly clear to me very quickly with this particular seller that he gets super antsy if you do not respond right away. And you can respond right away and say, I don't know, or I'll get back to you in 3 hours. But to him, like, if you didn't get back right away, like, just like the thoughts were spiraling out of control in his own head as to why you were not communicating with him. So when I think about this, clarity is kindness, I think that's something as small as how you're going to communicate with people is something that you can set an expectation for. Because what I'll say is, I've had great communication with this seller, and I had a conversation with him and said to him right from the beginning, I said, I have appointments usually all throughout my day. So if you text me and you don't hear from me right away, I'm not ignoring you. It's just that I'm tied up in another appointment, and as soon as I'm free from the appointment, I will get back to you and let you know an answer. And guess what? The guy's been awesome to work with. So I think some of the things that we can be super clear about as real estate agents when working with our clients is how we're going to communicate. We can be super clear on the boundaries on our time, which is totally fine. Like this particular seller, he's totally fine that I'm not going to get back to you in 5 minutes because I'm probably in with somebody else. I can't get back to you in 5 minutes. Totally fine. Just having clarity on how I'll communicate. So saying to your buyers and sellers, if you reach out to me, you will typically hear back from me within these number of hours. Just setting that clarity. I think we can be super clear with our clients as to like how much money they're going to need to close. And I know For buyers, we have to work closely with our mortgage teams to know that information. And even for sellers, like saying, just as a reminder, like at the very beginning and setting the expectation and being ultra clear, is saying, not only do you have a brokerage marketing fee that is going to be taken out of the proceeds, but you have seller tax stamps. You might hire an attorney. You're going to have to pay somebody to prepare a deed. There's going to be adjustments for oil that's in the tank. There's going to be tax and insurance adjustments at the end of the transaction. Like almost creating this list, like when I'm recruiting, giving people this list, like here's the 20 things that you might have to pay for out of pocket if you ever come to our company, even though 99% of those you will never pay for because you're not like doing, for example, a bulk mailing, and you're not going to need postage. But just being ultra clear with the seller to say, hey, in addition to the brokerage marketing fee, here's all the things, like micro list of everything that could possibly come out of the transaction at the end. Because basically the theme, again, is clarity is kindness. Like, what can we do to make the entire transaction as clear and as transparent as possible so that our clients, our team members are not in a cloud, like waiting till the closing. I wonder how much I'm going to make at the closing. Like, just giving them like a worksheet to say, here, you can figure it out on your own, but know that all these are the numbers that you have to be aware of. Or giving our buyers and sellers a simple one-page map of what the transaction is going to look like and what all the steps are up through the moving date, to remind like our buyers that there's a million little steps that they have to do, like change of address at the post office, making sure they have insurance before the closing, getting a bank check before the closing, like all those little things. So remember, clarity is kindness. Be ultra clear. And so that was one of the whole segments of this book on being a great leader. Like, don't be vague. Don't be imprecise. Like, because that's just unkind to people and it makes them uncomfortable. By the way, I also think being clear with yourself is important. One of the things I tell people is that in business and life, I think it's a great idea to have like very clear goals about where you're going and what you're about to do. Because when you have a very clear goal, as you know, I'm a huge believer in the universe and what we think about, we bring about, and the stories of our minds become the stories of our life. With that in mind, if you have fuzzy goals, you are going to have fuzzy results. Whereas if you have super clear goals about what you're going after in your life, you are much more likely to attract that, to get what you want, because you were super clear about what you want to begin with. The other piece that Brene talks about in the book Dare to Lead is that we, and it's probably everywhere, but we as Americans have this preoccupation with busy. And I'll give you an example. This week there was one morning that my daughter was homesick, and my mom couldn't get her till like noon. So I had to cancel some appointments so that I could stay home with my daughter until noon. And like, I was preoccupied, like trying to figure out what I could do from like 6 a.m. to noon to still be productive in my business. And like, having just read Brene's book, Dare to Lead, there's this whole thing in there saying, like, why are we so preoccupied? Like, why must every moment of every day be consumed with whatever our business is? Like, why can't we just say, hey, I get 6 hours off, my kid's sick, I'm going to watch cartoons for 6 hours and not worry about who's emailing me and not worry about anything. And I have a feeling that many of you guys are just like me. Like, even sitting and watching cartoons with my kid for 1 hour, like, you have, like, this guilt, like, starts seeping in. You're like, oh my God, I wonder who's looking for me. Am I a slacker? Like, is this a downward, slippery slope? Like, okay, now one day I'm taking off, or 1 hour I'm gonna watch cartoon. Now all of a sudden next week, am I gonna be like taking an entire day off to watch Netflix movies? Like, all these things go into your head, and then you start inventing things to do. Like, okay, so I can't be at my recruiting appointment right now, and sadly, I'll admit to many of you, this is exactly what I did. So I wake up at 4:30, sometime between 4:30 and 5:30 every day. So I knew I was going to be with my daughter till noon, and I tried really hard to take some of the time off just to hang out with her and watch a cartoon or play a game on her iPad with her while she was sick. But then, like, I felt super waves of guilt that I canceled a recruiting appointment in order to be home. And then I was like thinking, how can I make up for it? So I was like, all right, what I can do is I'll do a email to my recruiting database, and I'll set a webinar for tomorrow so that I could get more recruiting appointments. So what Brene Brown says in her book is like, you have to have limits. Like, what that you could say, like, being busy all the time should not be something we aspire to. Like, have a goal, like, whatever your goal is. Like, be okay with, like, achieving the goal or coming close to achieving the goal, but also be okay with, like, you don't have to have more after you get to the goal. Because that's the other piece many of us do, is we say, okay, I made 100,000 this year. Next year I'm going to make 200. And then when we make 200, we want 300. Like, figure out what would truly make you happy, what would make your family comfortable. And instead of setting goals around, like, productivity and getting work done, like, flip that over and say, okay, my goal today is to spend an hour extra hanging out with my kid, watching cartoons, reading a book. So stop being preoccupied with just busyness for your business. And so in my 6 hours yesterday, I will say it was definitely a struggle, or 2 days ago, it was definitely a struggle. I definitely created that recruiting email that I sent out because I felt so guilty that I canceled the recruiting appointment. And now I have a webinar this afternoon with 20 recruits that are going to be watching that so I can get more appointments. But I realized just in that time that what I could do to be a better leader, a better person, to feel better about myself, is to stop being so preoccupied. Like, hey, it's totally cool. Every once in a while, plans change and you can't be at an event that you want to be at, or you can't take an appointment that you want to take. It's totally okay to let it go. And also to, like, instead of creating goals around our busyness and productivity and money, also create goals around, like, how much time you're going to spend with your family, what kind of activities that you're going to do, so that you're not just preoccupied with busyness and business, but you're equally preoccupied with, like, all right, what kind of fun stuff am I going to do today with my kid? So just some thoughts on that. Got about 8 minutes left. And so I wanted to last talk about a quote. One of my favorite thought leaders is Seth Godin. Seth has written, 20 plus best-selling books on marketing, business, leadership. I had this awesome opportunity to meet Seth and interview him a few years ago. I'll save that story for another day, but the story on how I got to meet him and how I got his interview was super interesting. But I wanted to share a story about, or a quote that he said. Um, there's a quote that Seth has that says, "The thing that makes something remarkable isn't usually directly related to the original purpose or product or service. It is the extra stuff, the stylish bonus, the interesting process, the extras that we do that make people talk and spread the word about your business." So, what he's saying is like, you're probably a phenomenal real estate agent. It's not good enough to be a phenomenal real estate agent because that's really hard for a consumer to like know. It's like all the other extra little things that will make you build your business. So, the way, in fact, I wrote a blog about this not too long ago because I had read that quote, and then there was an article that I had read in, I think it was the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. But basically, the article was about IHOP, the restaurant. And in Manhattan, there was an IHOP restaurant, and the manager of the IHOP had his manager arrested for larceny because he was giving out too much free coffee. So, like, people would come in and they loved this manager. So people would come in and he'd give people like a free cup of coffee. The way the manager caught it is because I guess he owned multiple franchises, and he knew the average amount of coffee spent per manager. So this guy's coffee spend was way less than all the others. So then they watched him and realized he was giving clients the free coffee. So by the way, that the cost of that was say the IHOP lost $3,000 a year in the amount of free coffee that this guy was giving. What's interesting is that what if that particular IHOP had looked at things slightly different and instead said, hey, this could be our value proposition. This could be our differentiator. Like, people keep coming back because they love this guy because they think they're getting a free cup of coffee from this guy. And probably to a certain extent, that all did happen. Like, there were probably people that kept going back because they love the manager, because they feel like every time I go to this IHOP, the manager hooks me up, we get free coffee. So let's keep going back. But there's an awesome book. It's called Purple Goldfish. And basically what the book Purple Goldfish is all about is, what are you going to do to like absolutely stand out? And then if you tie that into what Seth Godin says, the thing that you do to stand out might have very little to do with your actual business. One great example of this is many of you guys do some closing business with Sonia Salemi. Sonia Salemi's been around as a closing attorney for a really long time, but her business in the last 2 years has skyrocketed. Like, she does, I don't even know, like thousands and thousands of closings. Her business has gone through the roof. And what her claim to fame is, over the last 2 years, she hired for her company an event coordinator. And that event coordinator puts on broker open houses. Phenomenal broker open houses. So what Sonia Salemi, a closing attorney, is known for is that if you call her because you want to do a broker open house, it's going to be on point. Like, invitations are going to go out. It's going to have a theme. It's going to have remarkable food. Like, they take care of making sure the open house is filled. So here's something interesting, because Sonia Salemi's just a phenomenal closing attorney, but that's not what she's going to be known for. She is known for, like, if you want a phenomenal open house, call Sonia Salemi. She'll take care of it, because Sonia's going to be there, like, marketing to the people in the room. So think about that in your business. Like, what's your purple goldfish? What's the thing that you do that makes you totally memorable? Maybe it's like every time you host an open house, that you have like this awesome care package for kids that come in, and they get this whole kit, and every kid that comes in gets this awesome kit. Maybe it's that when people hire you, they are going to get a phenomenal broker open house. It's going to have 50 people and a theme and like helicopter rides on the front lawn. Like that is the thing that you're known for. Because like Seth Godin says, like the thing that makes you stick out, the thing that will cause other people to talk about you is not going to be the fact that you're a real estate agent. It's got to be something else. It's got to be some unique thing that makes you stand out. One other interesting story is that one of our best agents, I think she is a great example of this. Kim Cook is a phenomenal agent in our Billerica office. And what's interesting about her, I've seen her work. And every time she goes on a listing appointment, like she goes out of her way. She does stuff that no real estate agent does. Like she will go on a listing appointment and like she'll be like, this room needs paint. And like that weekend she's out there painting the room. I get many of you guys do stuff like this, but like every time Kim is doing a deal, I will tell you she's like either planting flowers in the front yard of the property, or she's painting or doing home repairs, like literally herself, like going out there, like doing, like getting her hands dirty every single time. And she has a massive, massive referral business. What I would argue is that probably many of Kim's clients, like when they think about Kim, they're not thinking about the real estate transaction necessarily, like that she was good at getting like a maximum price. Like I think when people think about Kim, her customers specifically, they think about like that she went 5 steps above and beyond what anybody else would normally do. And what they think about when they think about Kim is like, oh, who's the girl that painted the room in the house for us because she thought we could get more money? Or who's the girl that went and wanted us to have better curb appeal, so she went and planted flowers in the front yard? And then that's the stuff that sticks with people. It's not just being a great real estate agent. I mean, great is the minimum standard. Like, you got to be a good real estate agent to even survive in the climate that we have right now. You got to be great at doing real estate. But what's going to make you stick out, what's going to make you phenomenal, is some little extra that is not necessarily tied to real estate. Some little extra that just sticks with people because it's so unique and it's so different that it just kind of plants a seed in the mind of buyers and sellers in your marketplace. So think about what is your purple goldfish. And by the way, there is a book that called Purple Goldfish, and it's on that very subject, like the very unique things that businesses around the country do to be memorable to potential clients. So with that, I think we are done. We are 30 minutes in. I promised that I would make a special offer at the end of today's program. So I want to encourage people to take these classes live every Friday morning. So what I will say that if you're doing the live class, that anybody that emails me between 9:30 and 10 this morning and would like a private coaching session, like a 30-minute call with me where we can talk about your business and figure out like what are the things you could be doing differently, email me in the next half hour and I will respond back and we'll set something up for sometime next week, just a half-hour call. I will tell you, once a week or once a month, I'm in a group called Vistage. It's a CEO group and we meet once a month for an entire day. Super hard to take off an entire day to meet with peers, but I'll tell you that having an outsider that is not emotionally tied to your business, having an outsider look at your business is sometimes like life altering because they'll see things that you can't see. So I'd love to help anybody that wants like a 30-minute call that we can talk about, because maybe there's something I can see that you can't see because you're in it every day. Maybe there's something I can see from the outside looking in, and offer some advice on how you can grow your business. So with that, shoot me an email in the next 30 minutes so that way I know you were on our live call. I'll expect the emails by like 10 a.m. And then we'll talk next week. Otherwise, I will see everybody next Friday at 9 a.m. for our live coaching calls. Thank you for joining.